Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm so glad you found us. This is the place where we share powerful, real-life stories of betrayal, heartbreak, personal growth, and everything in between. We dive deep into the human experience, and I'm here to narrate stories that resonate with all of you. DNA test exposes my wife's affair on our wedding day with my best friend, sparking a vengeful reaction. Life was perfect, or so it seemed. When I look back at the first years of my marriage, it feels like a dream, one I never wanted to wake up from. I married Melissa when we were both in our late 20s. We were madly in love, and it seemed like the stars aligned for us. We got married in a beautiful ceremony on a crisp autumn day, the kind of wedding that gets talked about for months. Friends and family surrounded us as we exchanged vows, promising each other a lifetime of love. It was the beginning of everything I had ever wanted. Our future was bright, full of hope, love, and endless possibilities. Our life together was just as perfect as our wedding day. Melissa and I were the kind of couple people envied. Our connection was undeniable. We would laugh for hours over silly things, take spontaneous trips, and support each other's dreams. She was beautiful, not just in appearance but in spirit. A perfect match for me. I had a solid career as a marketing executive, and Melissa was the heart and soul of our family. She worked as a teacher, and I often admired her dedication to her students and her passion for making a difference in their lives. She made our house feel like a home. Our two children, Emma and Noah, were the light of our lives, and we loved being parents. Every weekend was spent creating memories, going to the park, having barbecues with friends, or simply curling up together for a family movie night. Our life was full of laughter and love. I couldn't ask for anything more. Our friends often commented on how perfect we were. "You two are goals," they'd say, jokingly. It became a running joke, one we both smiled at. But, deep down, I believed it. How could I not? I had the perfect wife, a beautiful family, a fulfilling career. There was nothing more I could want. Life seemed easy, effortless even. It felt like everything was falling into place. But sometimes, life has a way of slipping through your fingers when you least expect it. It started slowly, so slowly, I didn't even notice at first. There were little changes in Melissa's behavior that I attributed to nothing more than the routine of marriage. She began coming home later from work. A few extra hours here and there for grading papers or planning lessons. I didn't think much of it. She had always been dedicated to her students, and I respected her passion for teaching. But there was something about the way she acted that seemed different, like she wasn't fully present when we were together. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm so glad you found us. This is the place where we share powerful, real-life stories of betrayal, heartbreak, personal growth, and everything in between. We dive deep into the human experience, and I'm here to narrate stories that resonate with all of you. DNA test exposes my wife's affair on our wedding day with my best friend, sparking a vengeful reaction. Life was perfect, or so it seemed. When I look back at the first years of my marriage, it feels like a dream, one I never wanted to wake up from. I married Melissa when we were both in our late 20s. We were madly in love, and it seemed like the stars aligned for us. We got married in a beautiful ceremony on a crisp autumn day, the kind of wedding that gets talked about for months. Friends and family surrounded us as we exchanged vows, promising each other a lifetime of love. It was the beginning of everything I had ever wanted. Our future was bright, full of hope, love, and endless possibilities. Our life together was just as perfect as our wedding day. Melissa and I were the kind of couple people envied. Our connection was undeniable. We would laugh for hours over silly things, take spontaneous trips, and support each other's dreams. She was beautiful, not just in appearance but in spirit. A perfect match for me. I had a solid career as a marketing executive, and Melissa was the heart and soul of our family. She worked as a teacher, and I often admired her dedication to her students and her passion for making a difference in their lives. She made our house feel like a home. Our two children, Emma and Noah, were the light of our lives, and we loved being parents. Every weekend was spent creating memories, going to the park, having barbecues with friends, or simply curling up together for a family movie night. Our life was full of laughter and love. I couldn't ask for anything more. Our friends often commented on how perfect we were. "You two are goals," they'd say, jokingly. It became a running joke, one we both smiled at. But, deep down, I believed it. How could I not? I had the perfect wife, a beautiful family, a fulfilling career. There was nothing more I could want. Life seemed easy, effortless even. It felt like everything was falling into place. But sometimes, life has a way of slipping through your fingers when you least expect it. It started slowly, so slowly, I didn't even notice at first. There were little changes in Melissa's behavior that I attributed to nothing more than the routine of marriage. She began coming home later from work. A few extra hours here and there for grading papers or planning lessons. I didn't think much of it. She had always been dedicated to her students, and I respected her passion for teaching. But there was something about the way she acted that seemed different, like she wasn't fully present when we were together. They had always been close, but over the past few months, it seemed like they were spending more and more time together. The two of them would often go out for drinks or to catch up, and Melissa would return late at night, her eyes tired, but never really telling me about her evening. I tried not to let it bother me. I wanted to trust her, to believe that it was nothing more than stress or a busy schedule. But something in the back of my mind told me that I wasn't being told the whole truth. That feeling, the one I had ignored for weeks, began to grow louder, more insistent. The problem was, I didn't know how to address it. How could I ask her about something I wasn't even sure of? I didn't want to be the guy who overreacted without knowing the full story, but I also couldn't shake the sense that something was off. I wanted to believe that it was just my imagination running wild. I wanted to trust Melissa, but my instincts were starting to scream at me. Every day, the distance between us seemed to widen, and I couldn't tell if it was something I was doing wrong or if she was pulling away on purpose. Either way, it felt like I was losing her, slowly, but surely. The storm was coming, and I had no idea just how devastating it would be. It's strange how one small moment can shatter your entire world. I never expected to find the truth the way I did. It was so unexpected, so completely out of the blue, that when it hit me, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. But looking back now, I can see that the signs were there, waiting to be noticed, and yet, I had been too blind to see them. It happened one evening, a Thursday, when everything felt like it was just the same as any other night. We'd put the kids to bed, and Melissa had retreated to her usual spot on the couch, her phone in hand. I was in the kitchen cleaning up, my thoughts drifting between the usual worries of life, work, finances, the kids, and the nagging feeling that something wasn't right with Melissa. She had been distant again that day, and her eyes were glued to the screen of her phone, a look I'd seen so many times before but never quite like this. I don't know what made me do it, but something inside of me urged me to look. Just a glance. I had never been the type to snoop through her things. Trust was everything in our marriage. But the unsettling feeling inside me, the unease that had been building for weeks, pushed me to check. I walked over, standing behind her without her noticing. She was scrolling through her messages, her fingers flicking across the screen. And then, I saw it. A message from Daniel. "I can't believe we pulled it off. I miss you already." My heart stopped. My blood turned cold. The words hit me like a punch to the gut, knocking the breath out of me. It felt like the ground shifted beneath me, and I struggled to keep my footing. I stared at the screen, my mind racing, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Was this some kind of joke? A mistake? But no, the context was clear. The message wasn't about some harmless conversation. It was an intimate confession, a whisper of something more. My best friend, Daniel. My wife. What had they been doing? I stood there frozen for a long moment, processing the reality of what I had just uncovered. I had always trusted both of them with everything. I had never once doubted Melissa, not even for a second. Daniel, too, had been my best friend for years. We had shared everything, our joys, our fears, and even our mistakes. How could they betray me like this? I couldn't just stand there. I couldn't keep pretending that nothing was wrong. With my heart pounding in my chest, I turned to her. "Melissa," I said, my voice shaking. She looked up at me, startled. I could see the moment she realized what I had seen, the color draining from her face. "Who is this message from?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Her eyes widened, and she opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. The silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. "Is this what it looks like?" I pressed, the hurt and anger rising in my chest. "Brian, I can explain," she stammered, her voice cracking. I didn't wait for her explanation. I couldn't. The shock was too much. The betrayal was too raw. All the walls I had built up, all the trust one had placed in her and Daniel, came crashing down in an instant. Everything I thought I knew about my life was a lie. "I don't need an explanation," I said, my voice breaking. "I need the truth." It was the hardest thing I'd ever had to hear, but she finally confessed. She admitted to the affair. She said it started on our wedding day. The day I had promised to love her for the rest of my life, while she was already betraying me with my best friend. I didn't know what to feel anymore. I couldn't even process it. The pain was too much, too overwhelming. In that moment, I knew my world would never be the same again. The days following Melissa's confession felt like a blur. Time didn't seem to matter anymore, nothing did. All I could think about was the betrayal, the hurt, and the devastation that had completely consumed me. My life, my marriage, the future I had once imagined, was now in tatters. But one question gnawed at me, more than all the others. Were my children really mine? I stared at them, the innocent faces of Emma and Noah. How could I look at them and not wonder? They had always been my world, my everything. And yet, the thought of the man who had been involved in this betrayal, Daniel, now hanging over our lives like a dark cloud, twisted my stomach. Had they been part of this too? It wasn't something I wanted to think about, but I couldn't ignore it. My mind raced with the possibilities. What if Melissa's affair had gone further than just her secret relationship with Daniel? What if, when they had been together behind my back, did that mean one or both of my children might not be mine? I couldn't live with that uncertainty. I had to know. So, I made the decision. I would have a DNA test done. I went online, researching labs that could handle such an intimate and gut-wrenching request. It didn't matter how much it would cost. It didn't matter what it would do to my soul. I had to have answers. No matter what. The hardest part was talking to Melissa about it. After everything that had already happened, after the confession, it felt almost surreal to even bring it up. But I had to. I couldn't keep wondering in silence. I had to get the truth, even if it meant destroying whatever was left of our already shattered relationship. "I'm getting a DNA test," I told her one night, the words spilling from my mouth without thinking. It was more of a statement than a question, and I wasn't asking for her opinion. She looked at me, her face pale, almost frightened. "Brian, no. Please, don't. The kids are yours, they've always been yours." I shook my head. "I have to know, Melissa. I have to know if I've been living a lie." She was silent for a long moment, before finally nodding, her eyes brimming with guilt and shame. I could see how hard it was for her to even look at me after everything, but I didn't care. My need for clarity overpowered everything else. The days that followed were filled with tension, with the looming dread of the results hanging over me. I didn't talk to anyone about it, not even my family. I couldn't bring myself to explain. I wasn't ready to face their judgment or their sympathy. I just wanted the test results, the truth, to tell me what I already feared. Every time I looked at Emma and Noah, I was filled with a mixture of love and uncertainty. My heart ached for them. They didn't deserve any of this. They didn't deserve to have their father questioning their very existence. But the pain of doubt was consuming me. I needed closure. I scheduled the test and anxiously waited for the days to pass. I knew that, no matter the outcome, this would be a defining moment in my life, a moment where I would either confirm my worst fears or try to rebuild something from the wreckage. The clock ticked louder and louder with each passing day. I was bracing myself for what was coming. But even then, I didn't know how deep the damage would go. The test results would be the next chapter of my life, and I wasn't sure I was ready for it. The day the DNA test results arrived, I felt like I had been holding my breath for days, weeks even. It had only been a short time since I sent the samples in, but those days felt like an eternity. Each morning, I woke up with a pit in my stomach, consumed by the fear of what I might learn. I told myself it was just a test, just a formality. But deep down, I knew that whatever I found out would change everything. The letter arrived on a Wednesday morning. I had been at work when it came through the mail slot, but I knew the moment I saw it. The return address, the name of the lab, it could only mean one thing. My hands trembled as I picked up the envelope, and my heart pounded in my chest. I stood there for a long moment, staring at the paper in my hands, unsure if I even wanted to know. I could feel the weight of the moment, heavy and suffocating. The kids were playing in the next room, oblivious to the storm that was about to hit our family. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself, before tearing open the envelope. The letter inside was short, direct, and cold, a stark contrast to the emotional chaos I felt inside. I read the results over and over again, my mind refusing to fully accept what they were telling me. The first result was clear: Emma was my daughter. There was no question, no doubt. A small part of me, the hopeful part, exhaled a shaky sigh of relief. But then I reached the next part of the results, the one that I had feared most. Noah wasn't mine. My stomach dropped. The words blurred before my eyes as the reality of what I was reading hit me with the force of a freight train. Noah. My son. The boy I had raised, the boy I loved, the boy who had called me dad for all these years, was not my biological child. I felt the ground beneath me shift. The air in the room seemed to thin. My hands began to shake, and the letter fell to the floor as if it had turned to lead in my hands. The room spun around me, and for a moment, I was completely disoriented. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. All I could hear was the pounding of my own heartbeat in my ears. How could this be? How could I have been so blind? Noah had always been my boy. He looked like me, he laughed like me, and he had my mannerisms. But now, here was this undeniable truth: he wasn't my son, not in the biological sense. The reality hit me like a punch to the gut. How long had Melissa been hiding this from me? Was Daniel involved with her when Noah was conceived? Did they plan this? Were they together the whole time, even when I had no idea? I closed my eyes, trying to steady my racing thoughts. The pain was unbearable, but the anger was growing stronger with every passing second. This wasn't just a betrayal of my marriage. This was a betrayal of my relationship with my children. How could she have done this to me? How could she have let me raise someone else's child, all the while hiding the truth? I wanted to scream, to confront Melissa right then and there, but I knew I needed to process this before I did anything rash. I needed to think. I needed to prepare myself for the confrontation that was coming. But one thing was certain: my life, my family, would never be the same again. I couldn't put it off any longer. The truth was out there now, etched in black and white. I had no choice but to face it, to face her. The air in the house felt thick with tension as I waited for Melissa to come home that evening. I sat in the living room, the DNA results still sitting on the coffee table in front of me. The envelope, now opened and torn apart, felt like an old, discarded memory, a symbol of everything I once believed in and everything that had crumbled around me. Emma and Noah were in their rooms, blissfully unaware of the storm that was about to hit. When the door finally opened, and Melissa stepped inside, the weight of the moment crashed down on me. Her usual bright smile faltered when she saw my expression. She could tell something was wrong, something had changed. Her gaze flickered to the coffee table, where the results were still visible, and then back to me. For the first time in what felt like forever, she seemed uncertain. "Brian?" Her voice was soft, tentative. "Sit down, Melissa," I said, my voice steady, but laced with anger. I didn't want to yell. I didn't want to lose control. But the betrayal had already broken me, and I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. She slowly sat down, eyes wary, but she didn't say anything. I could feel her fear, her guilt hanging in the air. She knew. She knew what was coming. "Do you know what this is?" I asked, my voice cold as I pushed the DNA test results toward her. She looked at the envelope and then back at me, her face paling. "Brian, Stop," I cut her off. "I've seen the message from Daniel. I've seen the lies. And now, I know the truth. You've been lying to me, Melissa. About everything. And now I find out my son isn't even mine." Her face went white as a sheet. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. I could see the panic in her eyes, the shame, the guilt. She had nowhere to hide. This was the reckoning, the moment I would demand the truth, and I wasn't about to let her spin this any other way. "Why, Melissa? Why did you do this?" The words escaped me before I could stop them. "How could you betray me like this? How could you let me raise Noah for all these years, knowing he wasn't even mine?" Tears welled in her eyes, and she reached for my hand. I pulled it away. "I'm sorry, Brian," she whispered, her voice shaking. "I never meant for any of this to happen. I never wanted to hurt you. It just happened. I never thought I'd get caught." "Caught? You think this is about getting caught?" I snapped, my anger building. "It's about you choosing to betray me with my best friend. It's about you lying to me every day, looking me in the eye, and pretending nothing was wrong. You made the choice, Melissa. And now we're here. This is the price." She was crying now, her shoulders shaking as the weight of her actions came crashing down on her. "Brian, please. I never wanted this. I never wanted to hurt you or the kids. It was just so complicated. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't take it anymore." I stood up, pacing the room, the anger and betrayal coursing through my veins. The memories of our life together, our love, our family, everything I thought I had, felt like they were slipping away, dissolving before my eyes. "Complicated?" I repeated, my voice rising. "You had a choice. We both had a choice. And you chose him." She took a deep breath, her face pale and lined with guilt. "I don't know how to fix this, Brian. I don't know if I can. But I still love you. I never stopped loving you." My heart twisted at her words, but they were nothing compared to the pain I felt. Her love had been shattered by her actions. And I didn't know how to move forward from that. "You don't get to say that," I said, my voice quieter now, more defeated. "You've broken everything, Melissa. Everything." I turned to leave, unable to stay in the same room for another second. I couldn't even look at her. Not after all the lies, not after everything I'd just discovered. I had to get away. I needed space. I needed time to think. Because no matter how much she claimed to love me, nothing would ever be the same again. The days that followed the confrontation were a blur. Time seemed to stretch on, but nothing felt real. Every moment I spent in that house, every conversation with Melissa, was filled with the ghost of what we had been. I wanted to scream, to run away, to escape the suffocating weight of betrayal that clung to every room, every object, every corner of our lives. But there was one thing that kept me tethered to the reality I was desperately trying to outrun: my kids. I spent the first few days in a daze, barely able to function, too lost in the pain to really process what had happened. But the love I had for Emma and Noah, the knowledge that they needed me, that they deserved better, was the one thing that kept me going. I couldn't let them see the broken man I had become. They were innocent in all of this, and no matter what had happened between Melissa and I, they didn't deserve to suffer because of it. The hardest part was knowing that Noah, the boy I had loved and raised as my own, wasn't biologically mine. He had been my son in every way that mattered, and yet now, there was a chasm between us that I couldn't cross. I didn't know if he would ever understand the pain I felt, or if he would even need to. But I couldn't turn my back on him, not after everything we had shared. I had to make sure he knew that no matter what, I would always be there for him. Melissa, on the other hand, was a different story. She had apologized, begged for forgiveness, but the damage had already been done. No amount of words could erase the betrayal. I didn't know what would become of our marriage, if anything at all. But I knew one thing for certain: I couldn't continue living in the shadow of her lies. I started seeing a therapist. I knew that I needed to work through the emotions, the anger, the hurt, but more than anything, I needed to find myself again. I needed to regain the confidence I had once had in myself, in my ability to trust, to love, to move forward. The therapist helped me realize that while the betrayal was something I couldn't undo, it didn't define me. I wasn't just the victim of Melissa's affair. I was Brian, a man with his own dreams, his own future. After weeks of emotional chaos, I finally sat down with Melissa. We talked about what had happened, about the devastation we had caused each other. She had her own guilt, her own shame to carry. But at the end of it all, I knew that forgiveness, true forgiveness, would take time. It would take work. And maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild something from the wreckage. But only if we were both willing to put in the effort. I didn't know what the future held. I didn't know if Melissa and I would ever find our way back to each other. But for the first time in months, I could see a glimmer of hope. I could see a way forward. The road ahead would be long. It would be painful. But I was no longer defined by the mistakes of others. I had the strength to rebuild, for myself, for my children, and for the life I still had yet to live. The journey wasn't over. But it was mine to control now. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. And remember, no matter what you're facing, you're not alone. Stay strong, and take things one step at a time.